Hi, Shemai, I'm KM James, and this vlog, I wanted to kind of pass on a little nugget of advice that I've learned. If you're like me and you struggle with the editing side of things, the structural edit of things, and you end up putting it down, as soon as you draft your story, you plot it, then you get to the editing stage and it all goes wrong. You find that it's never good enough. You don't know whether you're supposed to change it. Are you changing it? Are you just making it different? And structurally, how do you make those decisions as to whether something is structurally sound or not? Now, I've been writing for 15 years, probably longer actually. And when I first started, I started with a crime romance because that was what I needed to write. I woke up one day and I needed to get this story down that had been churning away in my head for however long. And so I did. In 4 to 6 weeks, I had written my first draft of the novel. And then I went to edit it. Now, at this stage, I knew nothing about story structure. I knew nothing about plots, about beats, scene structure, character development, nothing at all. I just pantsed my way through writing that first story, which was quite a feat actually for a crime and a romance. You know, there's a lot of clues and things you have to hide and stuff like that. But I got through it. And it's not the best story in the world. I'll be the first to admit it. You know, it wasn't great. But in the editing stage, I got stuck because I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the confidence in those genres to be able to know how to edit it correctly or what to do even. So I put that aside and I moved on to book 2. I did the same then with book 2. Wrote it, got to the editing stage, got stuck, put it to one side. Over the last sort of 15 years, I have written a romantasy series. I've written a sci-fi romance series. And I love them. I absolutely love them. And that is what I want to do as an author. But about 3 years ago, I got fed up of struggling, fed up of writing these drafts and then putting them to one side and not knowing what to do with them, really. Yes, my craft was improving. I was getting my head around story structure, scene structure, and I was taking courses on it. I was reading loads of non-fiction around it. So I was getting better. I was understanding the editing process a lot more, but I was still struggling. So what I decided 3 years ago is that I was going to keep it simple. What if I stripped it all back? These multi-genre books, they are complicated. You know, I mean, a standard book, contemporary romance, is complicated. But when you add in that extra layer of a genre, it gets really, really complicated, especially when you're in fantasy where the world building is massive as well. So I was like, what if I just do contemporary romance? I have one main contemporary romance story running through, and then a couple, no more, a couple of subplots, and the character arcs of my protagonist, the love interest, and a couple more that need some arcs in the story that will happen naturally and organically for the story. So that's what I did. And that's where the Cwm series came from. The first book, Chasing Promises, that was me basically stripping back my plots to ensure that it stayed as simple as I could make it within the realms. I mean, stories aren't simple, are they? But they are compared to multi-genre stories. Now, in doing that, the difference it made, I tell you what, was astronomical to my confidence as well, because I could really hone in a contemporary romance. It's all about the tension, the conflict really comes mainly from the romance side of it. The external conflict, yes, it's there, don't get me wrong, and that can help drive these two people together or apart. But because I didn't have the extra genre to have to balance, and coming in as strong almost as the romance, I found it a lot easier to focus in on the romance side of it. And my craft of developing romantic tension, of doing all of these things, has improved massively, and so has my confidence in it. So when I came to then revise that novel, to edit it, it was a totally different process, because I was following Romancing the Beats. And yes, I followed Save the Cat in previous books and things, so I've always known, well, except for that first novel, I've always known what the story structure needs to be in things. But being able to use Romancing the Beats, and just that, not having to then think, right, so I've got Romancing the Beats for the romance, and then for my fantasy element, I'm going to use some of the Save the Cat beats within it to have two stories layered and intertwined together. I didn't have to do any of that. Keep it simple, one genre. And I am so, so glad I did. I mean, I am now, a month or so off publishing my first book, and for the first time ever, I feel confident about it going to press, about doing it, and I feel confident about building in my next stories. And I did say to myself that I would write 4 at least books in that series before I move on to anything new. I mean, I do go back to those others a little bit naughtily sometimes, because I really enjoy those stories. I enjoy those types of stories. That's what I mainly read, those multi-genre romance books. So I do peek back at those, but mainly I'm focusing on the contemporary romance. But when I've written about 4, I will go back and I will get those other ones finished and done, but I will be able to apply what I've learnt from writing just contemporary romance to these books. And I'm not saying that necessarily the romance would be better from what I've learnt. It would, yes, it would, but I'm not saying it was bad before. But I think my ability to edit will be better, because I'll be able to focus more on the fantasy side of it, because the romance side will come naturally with my experience from contemporary romance. Big claim, whether it'll actually happen, whether that confidence will be there, I think it will. I really do. And then eventually I will release these multi-genre books. I will do what I promised myself I would do. But I think starting off with a contemporary romance story, stripping it right back, was the best decision that I ever made. And I am not saying that debut authors don't write good multi-genre things and that everyone should stick to one genre to learn. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying for me, it was the best thing I ever did to be able to really focus in on writing romance, was to keep it to contemporary romance. And I am excited then to be able to do the multi-genres later on down the line when I feel I'm ready to do them. So I thought I'd just share that little nugget, because I wish someone had sort of sat me down 5-10 years ago and said, right, you're overcomplicating things now. Let's strip it right back and let's hone in your craft on developing a specific area of it instead of trying to develop everything all at once. And that would have made a big difference, I think, to me. So if it's helped anyone, that would be one, that's what I want, really. So drop it in the comments if you have anything to add, if there's anything that anyway you feel is a help to be able to get people to really hone in what I could have been doing better, or any comments you have about whether it's helped at all to know this. Let me know, and hit that subscribe button for notifications for my next video. And as always, it's a pleasure, and I shall catch you next time. Hoi var!